Well, first Holmes was born, then he got fat, bald, and tired. So,
Destructoid. You should work for us sometime. You should just be a Destructoid guy.
You should talk.
Oh, it's the show time. Show's on. Hello. How are you guys? I'm Jonathan Holmes. This is my live stream talk show. Sup Holmes, it's called. I didn't come up with that name. I would have never done that. Yikes. It's a little embarrassing that it's called that, as though I think I'm important in some way. But you know who is important? People who make video games, not the people that talk about them. Such as Shawn McGrath. Hello, Shawn.
How you doing? Hi.
Good. How are you?
I'm excellent, thanks.
Do I look any less gross than the first time we met?
Less gross? No.
Yeah.
No.
I don't look less. Do I look more gross now?
That's possible.
Ah, darn it. Well, I guess that's what age will do to you. You look fantastic, as you always have. It's such a bold move to pronounce your beard with such strength. And yet
it's more like laziness than anything. Do you want to know how the beard started?
Tell me how the beard started, Sean.
I couldn't afford razor blades.
Wow, when did that happen to you?
Oh, that was like 5 or 6 years ago.
Wow.
I couldn't afford razor blades, so I was like, fuck it, beard.
Yeah, well...
I can swear, right?
Well, it shows your priorities. What were you doing 5 years ago when you decided to spend money on other things other than razor blades?
Oh, I didn't spend money on anything. I didn't have money. I still don't. I was trying to make games on my own.
Ah, therein lies the rub. Poverty and game making. They're like kissing cousins. How long have you been at it, the whole game making routine? How long have you been trying to make your own games?
Make my own. Well, I've been making games since I was 11, so 19 years. And I've been trying to do it. I did it commercially for other companies and things like that for a while. I've been trying to do it really on my own for 6-7 years now.
Oh wow! Okay.
2005 is when I really started trying.
And I mostly know about Dyad. I've heard you've made you worked on some cell phone games, some freeware games. Is that right? Did I read right? Okay, good.
That's correct.
Are there other games other than Dyad that you have that are out for purchase? Or is this
nothing that I'm the sole primary person on for purchase now.
How about what are some of the freeware games you worked on?
There's one called Booty Hole Millennium that I never actually released yet. It's really good. It's a real-time strategy game multiplayer. I made it at Toe Jam, a game jam in Toronto. Oh yeah, I promised I'd start drinking, so I'm going to start doing that.
Did you say it was called Booty Hole something? What did you say?
Booty Hole Millennium. I didn't come up with that name. I wish I came up with that name. My friend Jason DeGroot came up with that name. It's the best name.
What is a Booty Hole Millennium?
It's the greatest abstract real-time strategy game ever made in a weekend by 3 people. That's what Booty Hole Millennium is.
Whoa, abstract. So, is it like symbols for booties and holes?
No, there's no anything related to Booty Hole whatsoever.
Oh, all right.
It's just a good name.
Yeah, it is a great name.
I made another Toe Jam game called Game About Bouncing, which is actually kind of fun. I like it.
Sounds fun. What do you do in the game?
Bounce.
I see.
You're like a pinball in a pinball machine, in an abstract pinball machine, with 3 colors.
Huh, interesting. Is that one out on the market? Can I just download that?
You can download it for free, and it'll be on PlayStation Home soon.
Oh, cool, really?
Yeah,
that's exciting.
There might be a tie-in with Dyad that we're trying to figure out and stuff. Probably not happening, but it'll be at home soon, around the same time Dyad comes out.
So for people that don't know you, they should know you by now, because we've covered your games several times, because we like them so much. You are a man, you live in Toronto, you are making a game called Dyad, which is coming out on PlayStation Network. It is a musical tunnel racing puzzle action game?
Sure. If we have to use genres, that works. I think another one was Tactical Freakout Musical Ballet, I think, was another one that David Kanega came up with, the musician.
Dave who?
David Kanega, the musician.
Good one, Dave. Yeah, I like that a lot. It is annoying to have to use labels on anybody or anything, but it does describe stuff to people who can't experience it for themselves. So
Yeah,
Dyad is a very special game, in my opinion, and it is very hard to describe. And
yeah,
it's
the problem with it is it's impossible. It's really impossible to describe.
yeah.
Like even Jeff Canada, he was trying to talk about it on Totally Rad Show, and he was like, he's like, English isn't sufficient, I think was his quote. The English language is not sufficient for describing it, I think is what he said. Because it's just so fucking weird.
Yeah, it is, but at the same token, it's very simple. Like, once you play it, it just suddenly makes sense. You didn't a bunch of complicated rules. You stack the lessons in the game very well, so you do really start one place and end up somewhere else in terms of your skill set and your knowledge base and stuff. So there's a lot to it, but it's not a complicated game to pick up and play. It's pretty much just, what is it, 2 buttons?
Yeah.
2 buttons and roll around?
2 buttons and only 2 axes, like only left and right.
Right.
Left and right, and then A and B. It could have been played on an NES controller.
Yeah. Yeah, what a fun game it is. I'm just thinking about it now. Huh. Dyad, I love you. You're a fun game. There's so many things I want to ask you about it, though. I don't even know where to start. I'm going to throw some questions out at you, and you pick the one you like the most.
Oh, no, don't do that. I don't like any. Just give me a question. I don't like any questions.
Okay. For you, I will just pick one question at a time. How did you end up getting so close with Sony? Or should I say, are you as close with Sony as it looks like you are? Because it seems like they're really... They had you at their E3 booth. From what I know, Dyad, for now, isn't it a PSN exclusive, or is it coming to something else?
No, it's PSN exclusive for a while.
Right. So Sony is really kind of taking you under their wing, at least. That's how it looks.
Yeah, it's weird. There is some misperceptions about it that maybe we could clear up now. They've been like super great. They liked the game. All they did was like it. I showed them it years ago, and they were like, yeah, it's pretty good. And I showed it to them at IndieCade, and they were like, oh, yeah, it's really good. So they really liked it, and they were like, oh, we'll give you pub fund, which is like a guarantee royalties after it, right? So once the pub fund is like, now they have something financially invested in it if it finishes, so they want it to do well. And they're actually doing a lot of stuff with indies now, like they're helping out Guacamelee a lot, Retro City Rampage, Papa and Yo, games like that too, right? So it's not like just Dyad, and they're doing a big like push for indie developers. So Dyad is just it's sort of a right place at the right time with Sony right now because they're pushing so hard for indie developers. But they didn't finance the game or publish it or do anything like that. That's all me. They're awesome for letting me go to E3 because I could never afford that. But like when I showed it to you at PAX twice now. That was on me. I paid for that myself. That had nothing to do with Sony. So. Yeah, like they're really supporting it, but they're not publishing it or anything like that. That's still me. So, like, I had one comment on Twitter recently was like, "Oh, a whole bunch of people don't know about Dyad. Sony's failing marketing." It's like, well, they're not even supposed to be doing any marketing. Like, if they do any marketing, that's just bonus. So, like, it's kind of my fault that people don't know about it because that's supposed to be my job. So, yeah, anything that they're doing is like bonus and helpful, but they're certainly not required to.
So it sounds like they took notice of you and wanted you on their consoles, but it's not as though they paid for the game or bought the game or co-developing it or publishing it anyway. It's really still your thing. They just kind of asked you to be involved with their console. That's pretty neat.
Much.
Yeah. And speaking to people not knowing about Dyad and blaming someone for it, it was a challenge to talk about it, and it must be a challenge for you to explain to people what it is, and on top of that, the graphics are just kind of a brain-stimulating device without any sort of recognizable character, or it's not like, oh, you kill that thing, and you help that thing, and you collect that thing. It's just like, it's just coming at you. It's just a rainbow laser face blast. Right. How do you explain to people what that is like to play? That must be tough.
Yeah, it's really hard. I don't even bother. There's no sense in attempting to explain it to people. If you just like give them the game and give them a controller, they play it like they immediately get it because it's not confusing at all. But as I tried really hard to make it as like I don't know if this works in English, but I'll try to make it like as pure of a game as possible without anything that was unnecessary. Get rid of it and only focus on things that were really pure and when are really pure to the core of the game. And when you try to make it as minimal as possible like that, it makes it difficult to describe because there's nothing that a human can naturally relate to in the game. It's all just kind of weird shit. So translating something that's pure, like as pure as possible from one medium to another medium, English, is a difficult thing to do. But as soon as you play it, if you're familiar with games, it makes perfect sense. Because you're used to it.
Were you ever tempted to add a cute little character, like a llama?
No, I don't know how to do that. Right, that's Jeff Minter's thing. Jeff Minter he has a monopoly on all furry animals, I think, in video games. No, I don't know how to do that, and I don't care to. I know how to do what I know how to do.
Because, a lot of indie developers say, well, we don't care about this reaching the mass market. We're focused on staying true to our own vision. But then they do put, a cute little, I don't know, just a funny little guy in there. And they do little things consciously or subconsciously to make their games more marketable with mascots and retro graphics that'll appeal to people's sense of nostalgia and stuff like that. And you didn't even kind of do anything like that. You truly are biting the bullet hard and hoping that true gameplay is going to be enough to appeal to people who presumably like video games and aren't just suckers for cute mascots and whatnot.
Yeah. But I think that's the only honest way to do it, right? Like, if I was to do something to try to make it sell better or have more mass appeal, it would be a very dishonest thing to do. And like you said, you notice that you immediately notice that these companies are doing it, right? So you immediately notice that these people are being dishonest, whether they're aware of it or not, right? And I'm pretty aware of bullshit and marketing and dishonesty, and I don't want to have anything to do with that. So yeah, I think I was able to, I just didn't do any of that stuff. But I'm pretty good at marketing somehow. I don't really know why, but the game, isn't it's not like no one's heard of it, right? Like, it's at E3, it was at 2 PAXs, it's been at GDC, it's at Comic-Con in a month, right? So it's kind of everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, look at you here now with me.
Yeah, the biggest show in the universe right now. It's like, I don't know. I'm able to not do any of the bullshit, but still, market it in a way that I think is honest. So I think that's really important to me.
Well, that's the dream, isn't it? At least it's my dream, that you can just actually do what you want and be yourself and hope that being genuine and giving yourself to the world and putting yourself out there and taking that risk will be enough for people to appreciate what you're doing, at least some people. And that seems like what you're doing. You made all the graphics to Dyad yourself, right? Or did you get some help on that recently, or is that all you?
That's all me, yeah. I think, technically, I guess no. Very early on, for the first maybe year of the game, first quarter of the game, the graphic, like the overall theme and a lot of the graphic design and some of the testing that we did, it was between me and Pekko, who started designing the game with me as well. So he helped with the logo a lot, actually. The logo is, I'd say it's more him than me. I did the glowing and the coloring, and my first logo was kind of similar. It was a weird symmetrical thing, and then he took my weird symmetrical logo and then made that shape out of it, and then I sort of finished the job. So, but the logo was kind of more him than me anyway. So yeah, I had help everywhere, really.
With the logo and the other stuff too?
And the graphics too, yeah. I don't know if I don't think any of his graphics none of his graphics are in the game, but like it was him and I who went towards a path together.
That's nice. So he was like the drummer of U2. He didn't actually write any of the songs, but he's there just playing along.
I definitely, Dyad wouldn't exist if it wasn't for Pekko. So.
That's what Bono says about the drummer for U2. He's like, if he ever quits, then forget it. No more U2. It's really cute.
You want to talk about people who talk a lot of bullshit. There's one guy.
Whoa, do you have a picture of me on your monitor in the background? I always make eye contact with the camera. I didn't even look at. That's not embarrassing at all.
Not talking about it.
Rats, why do I make such dumb faces? It's a problem I have. People want to have sex with me. Did you know that? It's so weird.
No one.
If you put yourself on the internet, someone's going to decide that they want to have sex with you.
What if many people want to have sex with me?
They want to have sex with you bad, I'm sure. They're watching right now and thinking about you with no shirt on doing a wiggle dance or something.
Oh, they shouldn't be thinking about that.
That's what I say. And yet, and once one person says it, then other people think, oh, that's what you do on the internet now. You talk about having sex with that guy. So all these people do it all the time. On that very video that you put in the background, yeah, they
that one right there?
Yeah, they're like, ooh, hot. Look at his hairy knuckles. Can't wait. Can't wait to massage his fingers with lotions and oils.
They're either lying or delusional.
There's a glove for every hand, so they say. Ugh. So yeah, some people's tastes. Pretty weird. So getting back to you though, enough about me and being a sex object. What made you want to take this path, this none too easy path of making your own game? You've been working on Dyad we first talked about it over a year ago, and you'd been working on it for a while before that. You made that giant contraption for it at PAX East 2011. You've put so much time and money into this stuff. What made you choose to take all these big risks with such little financial reward?
I really like the game.
Mm.
That's basically the only reason. I'm not trying to sound conceited or cocky in any way, because this is my own personal opinion, and everybody's going to have a different one. So, keep that in mind. I think this is my perception of how video games are right now, and what's happened to them. The history of video games up till now. I think Dyad, for me at least, Dyad is what video games need. I think it's very much a statement of the current state of video games and what I think video games should be. And for me, I think the video game world needs it. And my hope is that as soon as I'm done Dyad, I immediately think it's wrong and I move on to the next thing. That's my hope.
After years and years and financial investment and time investment, that you're like, oh fuck, what did I make? Now I got to make something else that actually is good. That's what you're hoping happens?
Yeah, because I think it's a statement that exists now, and I very much hope that when it's done, I can find a new statement that I think needs to be made. Nietzsche, the writer Nietzsche, basically every book he wrote contradicted his previous work. And he pretty much said that everything else he had written before that was shit. And as soon as he was done that book, he would say that everything, that including that book before that was shit too. So, that's maybe an extreme example of what he said, but, that's sort of the gist of it. And I'm hoping that that's true for Dyad. But as of right now, I think it's, the true statement. We'll see what happens in a little while.
And how close are you to being finished with the game?
It's done. It's insert. I'm doing PlayStation. I was going to show you the PlayStation Store icons I was doing, but it's your face instead.
I'd much rather see PlayStation Store icons than my face. Yes.
What do we have?
My face.
It's on this monitor. I think I can throw it up here.
Cool.
Nah, I can't see shit. Back to your face.
No, I think it looks good. That's the logo you were talking about.
Well, there's some logos and there's some weird triangle stuff. I took it's weird. I sort of discovered that I can do this thing where I can all the graphics in Dyad are programmed, right? There's not many textures and things like that. It's all sort of programmed and doing lots of weird manipulations and stuff. And I found that if you take screenshots of these things and you go into Photoshop and you just start fucking sliders, you get some really interesting output. So I think I've discovered this new way I can make visual art, which is program a bunch of insane shit that you can't do, and then take it into Photoshop and then just make it look really good. So I'm doing that for the PlayStation Store icons, and it's fun. But the original question was how close it's done. It's done. It's in certification. I've written the text. The PlayStation Store icons are done. So it's in. There's no release date yet because it hasn't passed cert yet. But it's in for North America, and next week I'm going to be submitting Europe. So my hope is to have them released on the same day, but that might not be true.
Sure. You only have so much control over that.
It's not that. It's like I've got 4 languages, and the chances of me who can't read any of the languages having it correct is I can't even read English. The chance of the languages being correct is so slim that I highly doubt it'll have a simultaneous launch in Europe.
Right.
But
it's such a weird world.
A week or two later. I'm sorry.
It's such a weird world to me that you make this incredible game that is all about just playing it left and right, 2 buttons, but its release depends on how well you can quickly learn Portuguese. Like that's the difference.
No Portuguese.
Oh.
English, French, Italian, German, and Spanish.
Oh, okay. Those are hard too to just suddenly learn.
I've learned them all. No.
Wow.
No. I'm gonna drink some more dark though. My goal is to be completely hammered by the end of this.
That's quite bold. I appreciate your bravery and your willingness to be yourself on my show. There's
I don't get drunk every day. This isn't myself.
So, I wanted to talk more about what the game is. I want to keep coming back to that because I believe today is the day we crack that nut. Today is the day that we put into words what Dyad is for people. There's going to be a demo, right?
Probably not one.
Probably not ever, or someday?
Someday. Probably a little after it launches. Because that's a whole big other set of hassles that I have to deal with. And if I was to do a day 1 demo, it would probably delay the game. And if I don't hit this summer, then that means I have to wait till March. So...
Oh.
Yeah, there's just problems.
Unfortunately. Sure.
Yeah. Sure. As much as I would like to have it in Europe, Japan, North America with a demo on day 1, it's just not happening.
Yeah.
I can't do it.
Yeah, there's only so much you can do. So we're gonna.
There will be a demo, I promise. As soon as possible.
Right. It'll get there. I bet it's gonna pick up. There's going to be the people who've been following it, the thousands of people who've been following it will buy it day 1, and then a word of mouth will help, and then the demo will hit, and then people will get to give it a try and see for themselves and play the undescribable. But I'm going to try to describe it. So picture you're a squid, and you want to touch power, right? And you want to avoid some powers, because if you touch them, and then the more power you get, the faster you go, and the music picks up. You also infused it with music without making it a rhythm game. I definitely want to talk about that. So it's about speed, and it's about precision, but it's really about nothing but that. Speed, precision, and quick decision-making. Well, what, is that right?
Sure. Well, I mean, that's like a 5th of it or something, or like a 50th of it. So... Yeah, I mean, that's true. The decision-making is really the central point of it. Well, that's not even true, because there's 3 modes to each level, right? So there's a regular mode, which is kind of easy, kind of relaxed. There's a challenge to it. Maybe getting 3 stars on it is somewhat difficult, but they act sort of as introductions to different concepts that the game is trying to explore. Mm-hmm. And then there's a trophy level, which takes... sort of the central idea of the main level and just laser focuses on it. And some of them are very hard, some of them aren't, but they're harder than the normal levels for the most part. And that's how you earn your trophies. There's a platinum trophy in it too. It's one of the few games with the platinum trophy because the game is so big. So those trophy levels really focus on the decision making and the reflexes and the being able to read what's happening and then deciding and making decisions. Then there's the remix levels, which are just chill. You can remix the music and the visuals, and you can use the analog triggers to slow the game down and slow the music down, and then just fucking mess around. And they're really fun.
Huh?
I've only ever shown the game levels, and they're by far the worst part of the game. The trophy levels and the remix levels are so much better.
Interesting. So it sounds like with the main levels, there's a balance between, all right, this is a little bit player, and this is a little bit me, and you're coming together. With the trophy levels, it's like you have to think exactly as I mapped out this level. You have to, follow it perfectly.
No, absolutely not. It's supposed to be. There's a lot of emergent possibilities that I'm still discovering, like different strategies and things like that. Because there's a lot. All the mechanics are very nuanced. Like the way certain enemies block other enemies, and the way certain wildcard things work, and the way that certain enemies in certain levels, how they rotate at different speeds, create different opportunity paths. So there's no real right. If you're playing for maximum score or like trying to win as much as possible, there's no correct absolute way of playing. You have to figure it out. And I'm still figuring out new ways to play, which I think is really neat. I'll probably hit a limit at some point. But yeah, no, there's no like you have to play this way. None of that garbage.
Huh, interesting.
And that goes along with to optimization that you might want to follow, but maybe not. I don't know.
Right, so there's a lot of depth and discovery there, which goes along with something you said to me at PAX East earlier this year, is that you didn't want to make it a rhythm game. The music is infused with the gameplay, and you kind of create the music with what you do in the game, but you don't have to follow that set pattern that most rhythm games follow. The Guitar Hero and Rock Band games are a lot like just reading sheet music, and even more creative games like the Parappa the Rapper series are somewhat like Simon Says and whatnot. So yeah, was that something you actively decided to do, to reject the rhythm game formula, or did that just kind of come about organically?
No, there was no way it was ever going to be a rhythm game. Like, I'm a big shooter fan, right? As we talked about before, I think two-dimensional overhead top-down shooters from about 1988 to about 2007, I think is when the last Death Smiles came out. That's the genre that I think was doing, or first Death Smiles, sorry. That's the genre I think was doing the actual most interesting stuff. Puzzle games like Tetris Attack and things like that were doing really interesting stuff too, but no game genre, in my opinion, was doing more interesting mechanic stuff. Board games were, but video game genre. No video game genre was doing really interesting mechanical stuff compared to Japanese shooters for that that period of time. So I was looking at how they did it, and if you look at some of the more interesting ones, like the Kentacho ones, in my opinion, they were all randomized. They had patterns, and they had like Parsec 47. The way its mechanics work, it copied a scoring mechanic from a game by Cave from '98, I think, called Dangun Feveron, which is every time you shoot an enemy, it drops a disco man Dangun Fever, and it drops a disco man that comes down. And then once it comes down, it comes down green, and then if it hits the bottom of the screen, it moves up and it goes yellow, and if it goes off the screen, it resets your score multiplier. If you're able to shoot things and then catch them before they go up, every time you catch one, it increases your score by 1, right? So there's this really huge importance of you gotta look at the play field, figure out what the most dangerous thing is, because you have to deal with that because it's a hard game, and you have to sort of go behind it, figure out what the best way of killing things are, so that once they go down, once the score things go down, you don't block your path by having enemies that are unkillable, and then you have to make sure that you have enough time for the disco man to come down, hit the bottom of the screen, and then go back up to the top of the screen so you can catch him. And if you miss him, you've lost the level, essentially, right? I think that the point of good and failure is far too black and white in that game. But that mechanic is what Kentacho used for Parsec 47. Only what he did with it was he made more things, so you had more choices and more freedom to go, and made it so if you let one pass, it resets your score multiplier, but it's not a huge deal because it's actually, if you play an extreme, it's actually impossible to keep your whole score up. So it's more about like quick, like, I could score 100,000 points on the screen right now if I'm really, really careful, right? So you do these like really quick decisions. You score 100,000 points, you let your multiplier reset, otherwise you're going to die. So I thought Parsec 47, the way it used randomness and patterns in randomness, along with that scoring mechanic, is one of the best designed games I've ever seen. So I tried to, none of my mechanics copy those directly, but the idea behind those mechanics and the feel of how that worked is exactly what I was going for with Dyad. So it's you have to figure out what's best, but it's all randomized and different every time. It's a long-winded explanation.
Those are the ones that people wait for. They listen to the show. They wait. They have us talk. Oh, how are you? Oh, I'm good. Oh, you like making video games? Oh, sure I do. Blah, blah, blah. And then eventually, after someone's warmed up, then they just let it out like that, and I freaking love it.
Yeah,
I love it. You did it. That game design science that you don't hear about very often. Sadly, there's so many game designers that don't think that far about game design. They just think, oh, how am I going to get that guy shot in the face in my game so the people will buy it? But you have deconstructed the science of the shoot 'em up and applied it to your game, which doesn't even have any shooting, does it? Dyad even have a shooting?
No, there's no shoot button.
No, you latch on to things. Yeah. You have to latch your. Are you a squid in that game? Seems like a squid. Seems like a laser squid.
It's a Rorschach pattern. It's a U.
Whoa.
I have not. I very purposely, if you look at the trailer, the word "you" appears. It appears right over top of "you," and then it disappears and it fades out, so that it's clear. It's what's supposed to be clear, somewhat cryptic, I suppose, like maybe a little esoteric, but it was supposed to be clear that it's you, and you're not a character. It's a representation of you.
So whatever I see in that is, I must think I'm a squid. So
well, it's kind of squid-like.
Kind of at times, but I could have thought it was vines or something like that. But I don't like plants that much, so.
Well, some people say it's sperm. And there is. I'm not going to talk about it, but there is a fictional. There is a fictional correlation to it, to being sperm, but I'm not going to talk about that.
Interesting.
You have to beat the game. You have to beat the game to see why.
Does it have it doesn't have bosses and an ending and stuff like that, does it?
Oh, there's an ending.
Really?
Yeah. It's
exciting.
Really good. It's really good. The ending is really, really good. Like I don't even care about the stupid game. The ending is good. That's all. I know I shouldn't be like, oh man, my game is so great or whatever. Fuck the game. The ending though, holy shit.
It's good.
It's good.
All right. I feel thoroughly teased. I look forward to it. Do you want to? I don't want to get too negative, and I felt like I got negative for a second talking about other game designers who, I was particularly sad, and a lot of people know this already, about some of the comments the executive producer was making about the new Tomb Raider, saying, like you just said, your game, you see the main character, and it's you. It's not a character. It's just an extension of yourself. They were saying about the new Tomb Raider game, they intentionally made it so you wouldn't identify with Lara Croft, the character you play as. You're supposed to be her helper and watch her get hurt and feel bad for her and be excited for when she gets through it. These are the kinds of things going through other game designers' minds which depress me. But then there's some other AAA game designers that say stuff that make me feel somewhat encouraged. But how about you? You made Dyad as an answer to where games are right now. The question being, how can a video game be good in this marketplace? And you're like, I'll make Dyad. That'll be good compared to this other stuff.
But that's true.
What is that?
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I said that I suppose that's true. But
yeah, well, that's how it sounds.
That might be a little. I don't know the word for it, but that's.
Feel free to correct me when I'm.
Nah, fuck it. Just go with that. Why not? Those aren't my words, so people. I don't want to. And I actually do want to say that I disagree with you that other game designers don't think about that. I certainly think.
Yeah, tell me more about that.
I certainly think that's true. I certainly don't think that's true. That other game designers don't. You said that I think deep. My shelf is cracked, huh? You said that I think I thought sort of deeply about something. I guarantee you, everyone does too. Other people are perhaps more willing to live with compromise. That might be true, maybe. I don't even know how true that is. But I'm in a particularly good situation where I received a grant from the government. My wife is a research chemist and, does fairly well. So I'm in a situation where I can take an infinite financial risk and an infinite time risk. And that allows me to perhaps have zero compromise because I don't have a real world constraint holding me back. And that's probably the only reason why I'm able to, spend so much time thinking about, what I described from Parsec 47 and how important that was to me. I have real world support allowing me to do that, which is why I'm able to do it. I don't think it has anything to do with other people not thinking about it. It's just I'm in a different position than other people. That's all.
Right. I don't know. I've talked to a lot of game developers though, and maybe they're holding out on me. But
I think people are dishonest.
Huh?
I will say that people are dishonest.
Yeah.
I have no problem saying that. I think not everybody, of course, but certain people are certainly dishonest and aren't willing to be open or talk about things. So maybe there's that. But to say that they don't, think about those things, I don't think it's true.
Sure. Well, a lot of I didn't mean to say that no one but you thinks about game design. A lot of them do.
Oh yeah, I know.
A lot of the bigger name designers that I've talked to, it's beyond that point for them. They're in the world of mascot creating and buzzwords and sizzle reels and, getting multi-million-dollar budgets to pay off and selling a dream to people. And then when they buy it, they end up with something that they've already played before, just recycled gameplay on a new skin. But if you trick them with the right skin, then they don't notice. That's a reoccurring thing I hear from people in the AAA world, and they're often very sad and kind of tied to a golden noose, and they don't feel like there's much they can do about it. Whereas other people in your peer group are thinking about design pretty hard. But I don't know. I have to say, your description of Disco Man is probably the next level of whatever that kind of conversation is. I'm yet to have anyone bring up that deep deconstruction of the science of shoot 'em up gameplay. That was a first for me.
If you want to ask anything about any particular thing, I've probably thought about it as much as humanly possible.
So
but I just think like what you just said, like those are practical real world constraints holding those people back, right? Like they invest so much money in the game that they have to do this, right? Like because I did everything myself, essentially, right? Like I did have a programmer for a while, but the Ontario government paid for him, right? David, the musician, he's making a chunk of the profits, but he worked essentially for free coming up. I think I paid him like less than $10,000. So I'm in a good situation in the real world where I'm allowed to explore these different things, and therefore I'm allowed to do this, right? And other people just they aren't in that situation. But I think that's the only difference, really. I don't think it's anything to do with whether people can or do think about these things, because I certainly think that a lot of game designers, maybe if not all of them, do.
That's so generous of you. This is the humble part.
I just think it's truth.
That's good of you. I'll tell you what I think, so we can have a difference of opinion and then have an exciting compromise at some point. There's a lot of people that want to make video games because they want to be rich and they want to create a fantasy world where other people can pretend to be empowered and to live in a world that's not like Earth, where they're elves or aliens or something. And game design, the way you think about it, rarely even crosses their mind. And they succeed with their thinking and end up in these AAA positions, and they've never even come close to wondering about score multipliers and disco men's. Hasn't even started that part of their... And maybe they'll get there. Maybe, and a lot of them are in their 20s and 30s. Maybe when they're 40 or 50, they'll start to think, what are video games? What is the crux of what they do that other mediums don't do? But right now, they're just caught up in the, make a game that looks like a Hollywood movie. And then David Cage, do I even have to start telling you about him? You've probably heard of him. He's a neat guy. He's French. All he wants to do is
just... guy.
Huh? Yeah. He has not thought about score multipliers lately.
But he's thinking about something completely different. And he's thinking about it just as deeply, if maybe more so, probably more so. He's thinking about just something different. He wants to take games, and I don't like his games, but I have a lot of respect for him. Because he's thinking about what he believes, his statement about what games should be are his games. At least that's how he presents himself. Whether he's honest or not, I can't tell. But when he makes a statement about, I want to make a game like a Hollywood movie, and I want to have players be in an interactive fiction environment where they're making interesting choices, I don't think his choices are interesting, therefore I don't think it's a very good game. But he genuinely, from what I can tell, he genuinely believes what he's saying, and therefore, it's the same thing. It's just his interests are elsewhere, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I have tremendous amount of respect for that guy.
Oh, that's awfully nice to you. So, what you've boiled
I think he's
down
wrong. I think he's completely wrong. But I have, I don't, in whatever their intention, the intention of a creator, I think, is much more important than what he creates. And I think his intentions are pure and honest. I just don't like what he does.
Right. Yeah. Oh, we've got questions. My bad.
These are good questions. I like these.
Yeah, there's so many good questions. And before we do the questions, did you want to give away a number to a stranger?
Yeah. Sorry, I looked around my whole fucking house, and the best I could come up with was a PlayStation Plus 1 month membership. I think I got it at E3. All right, so I'm going to read off a code. You guys get a free month. I'm sorry. PlayStation Plus is the best I have. L as in Larry, M as in mother, F as in fuck, 8, P as in penis, F as in fuck, N as in Nancy, 8, 2, J, oh shit, my phone. That's my, okay. 2, J as in jackass, M as in mother, and E as in everything.
Everything. Wow. Fuck jackass, fuck everything. Is that code with an 8 in there?
No, jackass mother everything. jackass mother erection, actually. Is what
that was awfully nice. That was a PlayStation Plus code, free month
yeah,
of
that's
that.
a month of PlayStation Plus given out in the most obscene way possible.
People will probably, that was tough for them. They may have to re-listen to the show to get the whole code. But that's okay. They'll be okay.
Someone's already entered it. I don't know what you're talking about. Those people are too late.
Yeah, that's true. It might already be used up. Okay, so from Lufay, or Luffy, did the idea for Dyad spawn from the LHC, or is that something you threw in during development?
It did spawn from the LHC. It's not something I threw in.
We should explain what the LHC is for the people who don't know.
The Large Hadron Collider. It stands for the Large Hadron Collider. It's a particle accelerator developed by CERN, which is the European Science Institute. It exists underground. It's 27 miles long, underneath the French-Swiss border. It's majority in France or Switzerland. I can't remember which, but it's in those two countries. And basically, it takes electron particles. I think they're electrons or neutrons. No, they would have to be electrons. No, they can't be electrons because electrons won't break down into another quark. Okay, so they're probably hydrogen atoms or something. And they take them and they spin them around really, really fast, like high energy beams, and they smash them into each other. And they create, little tiny black holes instantaneously that exists for like a theoretical zero amount of time. And then they, when they collapse, they shoot out a whole bunch of particles, and then you observe the explosions that they make, and you try to figure out what particles come out of them, and then like how those interact with each other, and you try to figure out how the universe works. And it's by far whatever that telescope that's going up soon to the Lagrangian point, I think that's how you pronounce it. It's the point where the gravity between Earth and the Sun are canceled out. I've only ever read the word, I've never heard it spoken, so I'm probably incorrect. But there's something, a telescope up there, NASA is. That and the Large Hadron Collider are by far the two most interesting things being done in science right now. And they're looking for a thing called the Higgs boson, which is a theoretical boson, like a field effector type thing, that gives mass to elementary particles. Because right now we have no idea how mass works. We theorize how mass works. Sorry, we have an idea of how mass works, but we haven't actually been able to prove it. So we're trying to figure out how particles get mass. And until we know how particles get mass, we actually can't tell how particles have gravity, even though gluons have gravity and shit like that. I'm not a particle physicist, so I'm probably not correct. But anyway, so it's a really interesting thing happening in science right now, and it's like the forefront, like the frontier, in words of Captain Kirk, of like human knowledge is the Large Hadron Collider. And it was not originally, Dyad was not originally conceived to be taking place inside of it, but it certainly, Dyad's a lot about discovery, like a player discovering the world that they're in inside of Dyad and discovering how the mechanics work and discovering how the universe works. And while that's happening, because it's such a high intensity, high concentration game, it's almost, it could be seen as like an analog to meditation or sort of self-discovery. So I thought that the connection between the discovery of the world and self-discovery was quite interesting. And it's like superficially very similar to the Large Hadron Collider. You're in a tube, you're going really fast, you're interacting with other things, everything looks like it's happening at the speed of light or whatever. There's relativistic distortion in the game too, if it's an option you can play in the remix mode. So no, it wasn't originally conceived to be taking place in the LHC. That sort of happened naturally. To be completely honest, there was nothing that was originally conceived in Dyad at all, other than I want to make a better game than Taurus Trooper. Other than that, there was, and I only wanted to make a better game than Taurus Trooper because of my tremendous respect for Taurus Trooper. All I cared about was making a better game than Taurus Trooper. I didn't know anything else, so everything sort of came naturally through me playing the game and discovering it, and that's how the LHC came.
Well, we'll get into that in a second, but what? What did you just do? Did you just, explain subatomic particles?
No. I explained subatomic particles in the most superficial way humanly imaginable. I've read Wikipedia. Okay, I have a computer. It has the internet and it has Wikipedia, and I might have read a few things about subatomic particles, but I mean that's as far as my knowledge goes. I don't. Wikipedia knows way more than I do.
Your brain is magical. It's working in ways that other people's brains aren't. I'll just let you know that.
It has Wikipedia. That's all there is to it.
A lot of people have Wikipedia. I have Wikipedia. Here's how I've read Wikipedia. Here's how I would have explained LHC. Well, there's some booms going on in there. There's a couple of things bouncing around. They're looking at it. They're looking at the science of it, trying to figure it out.
Yours is way more entertaining than mine. And since this is a show about being somewhat entertaining, perhaps I failed.
Oh no, I think I was on the edge of my seat, just blown away not only with what you were saying, but your capacity to actually say it. That was freaking
it's probably all wrong. Like you should go to Wikipedia, search for what the Higgs boson is, and search for the elementary subatomic particles. Look that up, and because I'm wrong, because I don't have a good memory.
I don't know. I was impressed. I enjoyed it, and I was impressed. But we'll get to the Taurus Trooper, which is a Kenta Cho game. I was lucky enough to have played it, because it's not a game that a lot of people have played. I stumbled upon it. It was on a collection of Kenta Cho games that was on a Wii game called Blastworks, which was a kind of reimagining.
Hey, don't you owe me a copy of Blastworks, motherfucker?
I've owned you a copy of Blastworks for like a year and a half now. It's one of those things. I will mail it out to you on Monday. I swear to God. Do you still have a Nintendo Wii? Do you still have one of those?
Somewhere under a pile of dust, yes.
Yeah, so you'll dig that out for this, because it is fun to play Kenta Cho games on a console. It just kind of feels neat to do that. But anyway, Kenta Cho is a freeware developer. I believe he's a Japanese man. He's made many games. One of them is Tameki Fighters. Tameki, my mistake. Tameki Fighters. You're a little plane, and you shoot your enemies in the traditional shoot-'em-up way. But then you can grab their corpses, so to speak, and attach them to your plane and kind of katamari out into this big clump of death. But at the same token, the bigger you get, the more risk you run of getting hit. So there's a risk reward there with your size. And
no, actually, not really. This is what was the flaw of the game: is there's not really a risk reward, because it just acts as a shield. Because if you get hit, only that part breaks off.
Right. There's not a risk of death, but there's a risk of, I don't know.
There's no risk, because you always just want to get bigger, because you just have a larger shield and more shit can hit you. It doesn't matter. That's why I didn't like the game.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, that's why I didn't like it. It's because, rather than it actually being a risk-reward situation, it's always rewarding to pick things up. Because they shoot for you, and they shoot in weird directions, and they act as a shield for you. Why wouldn't you want to pick things up?
Right. For me, the risk was, A, trying to run in and grab more stuff to attach to my ship and maybe lose stuff in the process of doing that. And B, I'm just selfish. Once I get really big, just I want to stay huge for the sake of staying huge. Like I'm slowly getting uglier as I get older. It doesn't matter at this point. I'm married. My wife's gonna stick with me even if I get totally gross. But I still don't want to get like smaller and grosser. And yet
you always want to get bigger.
Yeah.
You never want to get. Guys always want to get bigger. They never want to get smaller.
I'm trying to in life. Even though I don't need to at all. So that's what Taneki Fighter spoke to me in terms of, and it let me get to know the uselessness of my own selfishness a little bit. I'm like, why do I care about getting bigger and bigger? But I do. And
there you go with social commentary on American greed.
I think he just likes making video games, that guy. So anyway, that's a quick overview on Kenta Cho. And one of his games was Taurus Trooper, which is a tunnel shooter. It reminded me of Gyrus when I first played it. It was like Gyrus plus the most interesting parts of F-Zero. And you played that game a while back and thought to yourself,
it's not good, and I don't know why. I played a lot of, Parsec 47 by Kenta Cho. That was the game that I was describing earlier. They used the Dan Gun Fever and Disco Man mechanic.
Yeah.
That game is the game that made me want to make games on my own. Like, my friend, I guess everyone knows him, John Mack. In 2005, I went to high school with John Mack, and in 2005, I decided I wanted to make games on my own, so I looked him up, and I was like, hey, man, what are you up to? And he was working on a game called Dyad 88 at the time, and I went to his house and sort of played it and saw it, and he was like, you should really check out N at the time, by Reagan and Mayer at MetaNet. It wasn't out yet, but he was good.
It's another Toronto area creator, right? N+?
If I wasn't in Toronto and I didn't know John, I would have never made games.
Oh wow! That's
it never would. It just straight up never would have happened because I didn't even know it.
People might know about John Mack. He made Everyday Shooter, right?
And now he's working on Sun Shapes. Yeah.
Yeah. He's a good guy.
Yeah, he's a good guy. So I went to his house, and he showed me, and I did a version of N, and I was like, yeah, whatever. I didn't care. I didn't know anything about any games at the time, right? I only knew the AAA stuff. And he showed me N, and I was like, oh, this is stupid. Half-Life 2 has ragdolls. Then he showed me... by the way, I'm speaking, when I said that, I'm speaking in my naive, idiot, 24-year-old voice, or 23-year-old voice. Then he showed me Parsec 47 and Rootage, and I was like, oh, these are actually good. So then I went home and I downloaded Parsec 47, and I basically played it for 3 months straight and nothing else. And then I was like, holy shit, like this is like one of the deepest, most complex games I've ever played in my life. I got really good at it too. I actually emailed Kenta Cho with my high score, and I was like, hey, how'd I do? And he's like, you're fucking nothing. You're like, I was at like level 400 or something on Extreme, and he's like, people are at over 8,000 in Japan. And I was like, oh, shit. Yeah, anyway, so Parsec 47 was huge for me. And I later came back to actually enjoy and respect what N actually was, because once I got rid of the idiot AAA goggles, I was like, oh, this is actually... the way the character moves and the way you can make things follow you and the way you can use the things that are following you to play quickly and to actually succeed is actually quite interesting. So anyways, yeah, Kenta Cho was like super huge, and if I didn't play Parsec 47, I probably never would have made games on my own.
Oh, wow. Intense. Well, everyone has to go play it. I forgot about questions. I'm sorry. I feel bad for everyone. And Parsec 47 is freeware, so you can find that pretty easily.
Yeah, you
Johnny Myro. What's that?
You should play it. Everyone should play it.
I haven't played it yet. I have to play it. I'm not as familiar with his games as I'd like to be. There's no excuse for that because they're all free.
His last few games are terrible, but
yeah.
Actually, no. His scale game was really cool.
Scale game.
He made a game where it's like a recursion game where you're in a world and there's like obstacles and you go through the world and the obstacles, and as you approach the exit, the current world shrinks, or the current world either shrinks or the new world gets bigger, and then once you get to the exit, the new world comes up and you already have to be planning. It's actually really, really good. And he made another game. Actually, fuck it, no, his new games are awesome. He made another game where you're just racing on a sine wave, and you just have to change the period of the sine wave by moving your mouse up and down, and then you have to like race through obstacles and things like that. That was really cool too. Fuck, take it back. I didn't like Gear Toy Gear, and I was like, oh, well, that's his last new game, because I think it was the last downloadable game. But no, his last few Flash games have been actually quite good.
Yeah, Gear Toy Gear was the last one I played too, and it kind of cooled me to where he was at. But that's good to hear. I hadn't heard of those other two in Flash. Dignified and you look great. This is. I feel like I'm with a king, with an old Scottish king. It's you, Johnny Viral, our old friend. Hi, Johnny. How are you? And Johnny Viral has a show on our Twitch TV channel. You should watch it. Anyway, do people react better to the game when they play it in that machine you brought to PAX East that moved when you were in the game? Or are people just excited about playing it on a standard console? Which is giving you a better response from the people?
To be honest, I think it's pretty equal. Yeah. I think once you play the game in the machine takes over. And it's cool, right? But, like, it's kind of shitty. Like, it's cool that it's, like, really ghetto and feels like it's falling apart and vibrates and, like, you think you're going to die. Like, that's kind of cool. But it kind of overshadows the game in that, and you sort of lose out on the nuances and, like, the really sort of what I think makes Dyad really good. You lose out on that when you play it in the machine. But you're in a fucking machine, right? So, like, it's kind of cool. And when you play Dyad on a show floor, it's kind of shit because you're not able to, like, really sort of play how you want and, like, really get into it. It takes a little while to get into. So, yeah, I think it's pretty even. The way I did previews, Daniel from Destructoid, I think his name's Daniel. Yeah,
Jordan?
No, it wasn't Jordan. No, Jordan did a preview when I sent him a build, and that build was shit.
Beware, Daniel Starkey.
Oh, Starkey!
Yeah, thank you.
One of our cutest young editors. He's got a really educate.
Yeah, he's good. So, that was scary. So when Daniel played it, and a bunch of other people played it at GDC, I had a hotel room, and I set people up for an hour, and I invited them up, and Daniel was one of them, and I was like, hey, here's your controller, sit where I sleep on this bed, here's your TV, see you in an hour, and I'd leave. And I'd come back an hour later, and I'd be like, talk now. And that's how all my GDC previews were done. And that's by far the best way to play it. Like, if you can play it alone in the dark, sitting down in front of a TV with, like, good sound and a good TV, like, that's the coolest way of playing it. Mm-hmm. The machine overpowers the game at shows, but at shows it's kind of shit to play the game anyway. So
Right. So since the show is already far from optimal, and to me the machine was like the character mascot. That was like this isn't something you can just visually pass over. You have to figure out what that machine is first. Then once you get hooked by that, you give the game a shot and play it. So I thought it was an ingenious notion. And I'd love to play that at Dave & Buster's. I don't know if you want to get an arcade deal going. Dyad would be... Say that again?
This sounds like a lot of boring work. I like making things. I enjoy making the machine. But doing business work, I don't fucking...
Yeah, I know.
That just sounds horrible. But like you said, that was the character mascot. I needed a way to market the game, to get people to act... Like, I had spent 2.5 years on it, I think, at that point. Maybe 2 years. 2.5 years. Yeah.
At that point?
At that point. Yeah. I'm slow. And I had to figure out a way to actually make people want to play it, right? Because, like, at the time, it didn't look like it looks now. It looked okay, but it wasn't super great. So I had to figure out a way to make people want to play the game. And, like, that was my choice for how to market it, right? Because I like making things. And it was a much more honest thing than, corrupting the game with a bunch of, fucking glowing apples and, like, happy faces and shit.
Yes, I would agree 100%. And it was genuine. I got to know you... At least this is how I felt. I felt like I got to know you in like 5 minutes through your game, and the fact that you were a guy that made a death machine that could just kill a stranger at PAX at any time. And you're like, okay, strap in. And it wasn't like a plastic, like it felt like a toilet seat. I was just like sitting on a toilet with a seatbelt on it playing the game, and it was incredibly fun. And it made me, you're right, it did distract from the gameplay a little bit, but it made me more curious about playing the full game later in the setting that it was designed for. So
yeah, that was the intent. I think it did it pretty well, and it was honest. Like, I like making things, so that was kind of cool.
Yeah, that was clear. You weren't taking the easy path by far. It would have been a lot easier to just put in some glowing apples and shit, like you said. That would have taken a day to just make a glowing apple graphic. But that machine was quite a contraption. So, okay, I got to do more questions. There's so much I still want to talk to you about. We have 29 minutes left, rats. But I feel
we can go over. Let's just go over. Let's just talk all day. Let's talk all night.
That'd be fun. I think we have a show that might start right after us, though. So maybe
fuck that show. I'm totally kidding. Sorry, go.
I know, it made me laugh. It's good. A Smith 906 asks, "It looks like a game I play on my Vita. Is there any way I can get a PS3 Vita crossplay? Everybody wants that these days. Vitas."
One or two. I'm not into bullshitting, and Sony's probably not going to be happy that I'm talking about this, but fuck it.
They'll be okay. They're pretty good.
I do want to do a Vita version. There's a couple stipulations. One, it can't suck. It's a small screen. That's a feature of a handheld. It's a small screen. Whether you can see the game or not, like, because there's a lot of nuanced movement and things like that in the game, and there's a lot of very precise targeting. Whether that works on Vita or not, I don't know yet. If there's a Vita version, and I will make it if it works. I guarantee you, if it works and doesn't suck, I'm going to make it. The other stipulation is it has to be free for people who already bought the game.
Wow.
I'm not going to make a different game. Dyad is what it is. I'm not going to make a different version on Vita. So the only way I'm going to do it is if it doesn't suck on a small screen, and if I can do it to not charge people twice. If those two things are happening, I've talked to Sony about it, and they said that the second thing, the not having to charge people, seems like it should be okay. So as long as it doesn't suck on a small screen, yeah, I'm going to do a Vita version. And if you buy the PS3 version, you will get the Vita version. But I can't claim that I'm even going to make it, because I don't know if it's going to suck or not.
Right. So as long as A, you make a game that's worth playing, and B, you don't have to charge people twice for the same game, you'll do it.
Yes, wow. And I have some really interesting ideas for how I want to do crossplay too. So I don't want to talk about them because they're not sort of formalized. They're just kind of ideas right now. So yes, I would love to make a Vita version, and it's I'd say it's about a 75% chance that it's going to happen. But if you buy the PS3 version, you're not going to have to pay for it twice.
Right. So you don't have to wait for the Vita version.
No.
Wow.
I won't if I can't do that, and I've talked to them, and it seems like I can. But if I can't do that, I won't make a Vita version.
Right.
I just don't feel it's not about being nice, like you said. It's just it's fucking wrong to charge people twice for the same game. That's bullshit.
A lot of people don't seem to feel too bad about it in the industry. I see a lot of that double, triple charging. I don't know how many HD collections are coming out this year. Yeah. It's not something other people have the same principles about. So that's awfully nice. You're such a nice king.
It's not nice. It's just fucking basic decency.
That's what nice people always say about being nice. Uzi Does It wants to know if you were inspired by Rez and any of Mizuguchi-san's work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
I think of Mizuguchi-san and Child of Eden and compared to Rez and just him.
I don't like Child of Eden. Just completely, honest. I'm not here to bullshit. I don't like Shawn McGrath.
I didn't think you would.
I thought a lot of the graphics were good, not great. I thought a lot of the graphics were good sometimes. Some of the color use was pretty good, but the realistic shapes, like the whales and stuff, the whales had some of the nicest blue additive blending I've ever seen, and I didn't like it. Or I didn't like the shape, but I really liked the color. When you pick up, I forget which orb you pick up, and it makes a blue, Bezier curve streak into your power-up thing in the bottom corner. That looks fucking awesome. That's one of the nicest graphics effects I've ever seen. There's a lot of good things in Child of Eden. There's a part where, I don't even know if I made it into the final game, but there's a part that I saw in screenshots that were cubes that were glowing, and they were just outlines of cubes that were glowing. I totally copied that and threw it in Dyad, because I saw those cubes and I was like, fuck, that's a really interesting effect. And I did something completely different with it and sort of took it, somewhere else, right? But Level of Dyad was totally inspired by those cubes that I saw from a trailer in Child of Eden. But I thought the gameplay was shit. I thought it was fairly boring. It was tedious to get through. And I thought some of the effects, you're going through a tunnel at one point, and the tunnel looks really nice because they use really fine lines that that I wasn't able to get in Dyad, and I don't know why I wasn't able to get fine lines to look properly. But they get these really fine lines that glow and pulse with the music, and that's amazing. I couldn't figure out how to do that in Dyad. I was trying to do it before I saw it in Child of Eden. But anyway, so there's a lot of really interesting things. But when you're going through that tube, it comes to like a brown screen, and it looks like a cheesy demo scene, like a really bad demo scene thing from like the C64 era, as like your blocker and you have to shoot it. And it was just like it was a really uneven game for me. Parts of it were quite good. The music I thought was terrible, and I thought I just thought the music was bad straight through. And half the graphical effects were like amazing, and half of them were just shit. So I was really disappointed with Child of Eden. Rez, on the other hand, before I started Dyad, I knew I can't draw, I can't make shapes, my hand's not steady enough, and I don't see shapes the way someone who can draw sees shapes. I liked Rez, and I used Rez as a way to, I tried to copy their graphics from 2005 until 2008. All I did was try to figure out how they made those graphics in Rez and copy them. I learned a lot about how graphics programming works because I just tried to copy Rez for 4 years. I was never successful. That game is crazy. But yeah, I love Rez. Rez is like the game that made me want to get to this graphical style.
Awesome. So that inspired you to not be discouraged by the fact that you're not a visual artist, but to become a visual artist in a non-conventional way by just writing code. That's where your visuals come from. Is that right? From the code?
Yeah, but I'm friends with Jake. My friend Jake. He worked on Rez, and he did the character art in Rez, and like the Running Man scene at the end of level 4. Holy shit, that's amazing. That's one of those. Probably my favorite moment in video games from there.
Yeah, I can see that. It is a good game, and I agree with you about what you're saying about Child of Eden. It was troubling. I was troubled by it. I wanted to love it, and I found ways to love a lot of it, but it didn't. It almost felt like his heart wasn't totally in it, or his heart was someplace different than it used to be in terms of just game design innovation or infusing any sort of game design ideas. It was more like he just had this love of Genki rockets and a
Genki Rockets is him. Like that's his. I think Genki Rockets is now his sort of creative expression. And I think it's just everything he makes is centered around Genki Rockets.
Yeah, it was just.
I don't know him. I don't know him. I've met him a few times, but I don't know him at all.
I tried talking to him once. It was when it was Tokyo Game Show 2010, when it was just like a Kinect showpiece, and the Kinect controls were so terrible at that point.
He had the gloves on, I think, at that show because the Kinect didn't pick it up properly.
Yeah, it just didn't work then. That improved, but not to the point. I didn't even buy it on the 360. I bought it on the PS3.
Have you played in 3D on the PS3?
No, I have not.
Oh, it's good.
Yeah.
It's good. I bought it recently because I played it on 360, and someone told me I have to play it in 3D because I was considering Dyad in 3D, which doesn't work. And so yeah, it's pretty cool in 3D.
I should check it out. Yeah, I'll just need to get one of those TVs first. More questions from the people. Now Sab Sanao asks, will the trophies be super hard? I hope they are, and will there be DLC day one or day weeks? Are you going to do some DLC day one?
Okay, so it's a very tricky situation. Trophies, some are super hard. Some are super easy. One is super easy. One is just like candy. One is just like, oh shit, you made it this far? Well, fuck it, mash buttons and fucking enjoy. Because the level is just too wild to make it hard. For the most part, yeah, some trophies are some of the trophies are hard. Like to the point where I don't even think Sony QA could beat them. So good luck, guys. Yes, some of the trophies are very hard, and they're in my opinion they're better than the main game. So yeah, trophies are hard. Some.
And it's its own mode, you said trophy, because I'm kind of against trophies as they're usually done.
Oh, I fucking hate trophies. They appeal to the dumbest, lowest form of humanity, which is I want something. And they're like achievements, like they're the analog achievements, right? They're like, oh, you did something, here's a reward.
Right.
Just for doing what you were already doing. I use the trophies to recontextualize or hammer home very precise points of games that I'm trying to convey. So The trophies are not like regular trophies. They are their own level, their own unique thing, and you have to be very good at one particular aspect of Dyad to get them. So I'd say about at least 18 of the trophies are hard to get.
And they're integrated into the design of the actual game as opposed to just, oh, you got 800 points, there you go, now you're...
Yeah, there's none of that garbage. There's 26 levels, there's 27 levels of Dyad, but skipping the last level because it's something completely separate. There's 26 main levels of Dyad. Each one of those has an alternate method of play, which is the trophy level, and it's like a recontextualization of the main idea of Dyad, of that particular level. So yeah, that's how you get the trophies. Some of them are very hard. I'd say 2 of them are really, really hard. You get gold trophies for those. I think it's a shit.
Beware, too tall.
Shawn, you got taller.
Yeah, sorry. I got really excited, so I sitting up straight.
So exciting. I really want people to take your lead on that and because achievements and trophies are a huge part of the current gaming landscape, whether we like it or not. And people are buying games that they hate in order to increase their gamer score because they're more obsessed with growing their sense of worth through having
That's disappointing. I said that's stupid. Like the concept is stupid. I'm not saying the people who do that are stupid. I'm saying that's disappointing. The fact that games are made in such a way is disappointing. And I have a platinum trophy in Dyad. It's one of the few PSN games to have a platinum trophy. And I had a platinum trophy, and I had to fight them. It wasn't a bad fight or anything like that, but they were like, well, we don't, PSN games don't get platinum trophies. And I was like, yeah, but there's 26 levels. You have to have a platinum trophy if you want 26 trophies. There's no other way around it, right? And they were concerned that it was going to be like a trophy grab game. And the fact that those exist is upsetting to me.
Yeah, it makes video games worse in general. But if more people take after you and integrate it into the design...
Oh, it's not my idea. That's John Mack's idea.
Okay, that's very nice.
I don't want to take credit for somebody else's idea. John Mack and I were talking. We spent we talk all the time about this, and we're talking about all the time, and this is something we talked about. And he was like, "Oh, trophy levels. Like if there was a level that was like just designated for the trophy, and it was sort of like different." And I was like, "I'm just going to do that." So yeah, it's. Yeah,
has he done it yet in any of his games?
No, and I don't know how I don't know how SoundShape's trophies work. I don't know how they work, so I don't know.
So
I hope so. I hope.
You're the guy who done did it then. I mean, he may have come up with the idea, but you're the one who put it in. So
yeah, it's not an idea. Sorry, when I said motherfucker there, it's because Google was asking me if I was still here. I thought that I was disconnected.
That's okay. That's always a good way to check your connection. Misinterrupted asks, will there be custom soundtrack? Huh.
No.
I hadn't thought of that.
Absolutely not.
Because the soundtrack is a major element to the experience, and you've kind of made it specific to that game. It's not as
it's not even that. It's way more complex than that. There is no soundtrack. There's no sound in the game that's longer than 7 seconds, 7.5 seconds. There's one 7.39 seconds, I think, is the longest sound in the game. The levels are cut up stems of every song, and usually 4 or 8 are loops, and those loops constantly play, change, pitch shift. The mechanics of the game or the rules of the game serve as like a dynamic mixer for the sound in the game. So you can't have custom soundtracks unless you have a musician who's willing to take his 40-track recording and split it up and cut it up and decide rules for each thing. And unfortunately, as far as I know, there's only one musician who is willing to do that, and that's David Kaneka, who did the music for Dyad. So unfortunately, there's not custom soundtracks because it's not even feasible. It's not possible.
What if you could get Bobby McFerrin to do an alternate soundtrack with all his magical sounds from his face?
That is.
Just picture 40 McFerrins. Like every time you get one of those power-ups.
Maybe, if somebody was willing to do that and could make things not sound dissonant and keep everything in key with, 8 chord changes per level and, maybe 100 interaction sounds per level, maybe that would be possible. But seriously, the music in Dyad, it's very non-linear, and every level has different rules into which how the music is created. So custom soundtracks is just not possible. unfortunately. I mean, I would like it too. Like, if you want custom soundtracks, AudioSurf exists. And I have some concerns with AudioSurf from its game rules perspective. It's just like Clax, and Clax wasn't a good game to begin with.
Clax is the party puzzle game that maybe not everyone played. I played a hell of a lot of Clax. It's not too bad.
Liked it. I didn't like it at all. I thought it was pretty monotonous. But anyways, AudioSurf exists, and it has custom soundtracks. Dyad generates music rather than uses music. So,
which is what we were saying before about it being a music game. To me, anyway, it's a music game, but not a rhythm game.
Right.
Yeah. The
so
rhythm.
the short answer is no. The long answer is it's too complex. It's not even possible.
I want Bobby McFerrin to do it. I would play that. I would play the Bobby McG version of Bobby McGrath. Anyway,
I'll call him up.
I'll call. Well, we're on the internet now, so somebody can get in touch with him for us. Slow Holmes asks, is there a single game that you wish the most you could have observed the development of, that you could have been in the room for the creation of that game?
Maybe, but that's something I've never even thought about.
I know. Have you watched other people make games before? It's often just a silent, sad world they seem to be in when they're stressed.
Usually people are angry throwing things. Maybe I've developed that from watching people. No, I don't even know how to answer. I feel like a piece of shit for not being able to answer this question, but I don't know.
That's okay. You have observed, unlike most of us, you've been around. You've seen other people make games, and you've made them yourself, so you can kind of speak to what that experience is like.
It's really tedious and boring. No one wants to fucking watch it. So, no. No one. Sorry, I don't know. I have a terrible answer to that question. And if I thought about it, if I had like an hour to think about it, maybe I'd come up with a really good answer, but maybe not. But
no, I don't. I think it's a very honest answer and a true one. People idealize the process of making games sometimes. From what I've witnessed, it is a lot of just like writing a really long email.
Yeah, and actually that's completely true. And people have, this is, maybe this segues into a good point here, perhaps. People do idealize the process of making games, and it's bullshit. They shouldn't. It's not a lot of magic. There's no any of that nonsense. It's just a lot of hard work. It's it's abstract work. Like, I don't know what the work is, but it's a lot of just sitting there, seeing what needs to be done, and just fucking doing it, even though you don't want to. That's what making games is. Every human being has the ability to do it, whether it's games, music, movies, painting, sculpture, whatever, it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. It's just hard work. And if you're willing to be like, oh, I want to play a game tonight, or I want to read a book tonight, if you're just like, no, fuck it, I'm going to go and do this like really hard work that no one wants to do. If you're willing to do that, everyone will do it. And everyone should do it. Like, just do it. There's nothing complicated or difficult about it other than the fact that you have to make yourself do the worst work ever.
So other than the fact that it is so hard, it's pretty easy.
It's not hard. It's just tedious. It's just tedium. It's like, try living with 3 years of doing the most mundane thing ever, 18 hours a day. If you're willing to do that, you can make the greatest game ever.
Yeah. The mental exertion, the willpower, the willingness to solve problems and take risks without any reward for your risk. Speaking of risk and reward, making a game is like playing a game, except you don't get you did a good job every 5 minutes.
There's no achievements. There's no achievements.
You get one achievement, which is finishing your game and then hoping people appreciate it, as I'm sure they will in your case. I was just reading a comic book in the bathroom I was thinking about just now by James Kolchalka. Have you ever heard of James Kolchalka?
No, unfortunately, I don't know anything about anybody.
I wonder what you think about him. He loves video games a lot, and he thinks that art and play are the same thing.
I completely agree.
You agree with that? I thought you might. Yeah. That's what made me think of it.
What's his name? I'm going to go write it on my actual computer here.
You should. James Kolchalka.
James. How do you spell his last name?
That's hard. Kolchalka, I think.
Okay, good enough. Thank you.
That might be right. He's a really small-time comics writer and artist. He did a thing for a while called, I think it was called Comics Journal. He did a 4-panel comic about every day of his life for like 4 years or something. Every day he forced himself to draw at least that comic and did other comics on top of it. But anyway, he's got a lot of his comics are just philosophical musings, and one of them is that art is our attempt to recreate our world and then show it to someone else, recreate our external and internal worlds and show them to people. And play is just examining those worlds physically. And in the end, you play to make art, and when you enjoy art, you're playing. I thought that was pretty neat. What do you think of that idea?
Yeah, I think one of the big aspects of play, which is something that's missing in games for the most part, which is what I think, one of my statements from when I said Dyad is a statement in a way. I sort of believe that one of the things that's missing in games is play, and play is when a human being, I believe, is at like an ultimate like freedom. They have something, they're in some sort of environment, like Huizinga talks about the magic circle and being like in an environment that's separate from the real world, but fuck that, you don't even need that. If you're in some environment...
Wait a minute, one second, I didn't get clarification on whose magic circle?
Johann Huizinga, he was a Dutch play theorist, or maybe the first play theorist, at least the first published play theorist that I know of. Oh. I think he wrote a book called Homo Ludens.
Homo Ludens? I gotta check that out.
Shit, I think I lent it to somebody. He wrote a book called Homo Ludens in, I think, 1947, maybe? Wow. And it's about, humans at play and sort of the history of play. And there's a lot, as a historical book, there's a lot of really interesting things in it. Anyway, so he talked about play being like this sort of thing that's separate from the real world, but is like, hey, your cat's there, awesome. He talked about it sort of being like a place of like pure freedom where he has the ability, infinite freedom, and whatever they create out of that is art or whatever. And so David Kaniga and I talk a lot about this. He's the musician for Dyad. We talk a lot about this, and he says his favorite video game is Ableton Live because he's a musician. He uses Ableton, and I'm like, fuck, my favorite video game is Photoshop because it's like a place where I'm totally free and I'm able to play around, and then whatever I create out of that, whatever, that's sort of secondary to the actual play process. So yeah, I think for Dyad at least, we were certainly trying to make it a place of infinite possibilities for freedom of human expression. And to make it like an actual playground, like a sandbox is way more interesting than most video games. Like I'm not talking like a sandbox video game. I'm talking about a fucking sandbox. Like to me, that's a lot more interesting than a lot of video games because it's an actual place where you have freedom of expression as a player and you're not following some sort of path. And we try to make Dyad like that. So yeah,
the cat's getting pissed off about the stuff you're saying. He's knocking.
Well, it's 70-year-old babble just being translated, I suppose.
Yeah, you shouldn't be so angry about it. You're just translating what that man said about the magic circle. What was his name again?
Johann Huizinga.
My cat is destroying the set. Okay, I think he settled down.
I'm probably wrong with that pronunciation. Like I said, I've never heard anybody.
That's okay. It's one of those words you read as opposed to say, which is how a lot of the internet is, and that's where I end up doing all of my art and play. That's kind of my favorite video game. It's just the internet, typing to people, asking them to be on my show, writing articles about things. I wish you would write. Speaking of that, have you ever taken no? Because you've got so many ideas, and they will be translated in your game, which is great. But to give your ideas to the world in as many ways as possible, I always think is nice. You have to prioritize, but all I can say is if you were to write an essay, I would be excited to read it.
I have written essays. I've written talks that I've given at various events and universities and things like that. And they're good, I think, in my opinion. I think the talks that I give are good. I'm slow as fuck at writing. Like, I will spend 6 months on a paragraph. It's brutal. I have ideas, that's true. I don't have the ability to express them in written text. I can speak them and I can put them into games, but I'm not good at writing. I'm too slow at it, and I absolutely hate it. I hate writing.
Yeah. Oh, well, in that case, don't do it.
No, I'll make games instead.
That's good. Yeah, I can't complain about that. Well, we have about 4 minutes left. I don't want you to have missed the chance to say any of the things that you wanted to say, because now that we're on iTunes, people actually seem to be listening to the show now. They watch the live stream. Wow, he's going berserk back there.
You're France now. Wait, that's the French flag? If that's not the French flag, I'm a total asshole. I'm sorry.
I think it might be Italy. It might be France. This is fun. He's going berserk. It's like a kaiju. Like a Godzilla just destroying my city. But anyway, is there anything that we didn't touch upon that you were excited to let people know about Dyad or anything at all?
No.
You said it?
No, I just was here to answer questions. I prefer if you ask questions.
Yeah, I like questions too. But I wanted to make sure that you had your chance.
Nah, fuck it. Who cares? It's coming out soon.
Our engineer, Sinistar, from the arcade game Sinistar, is asking if you're going to give away that other code, but you're not sure if that one will work, right?
Nah, it's stupid. I'll tweet them. I've got Lollipop Chainsaw, which is a terrible game. I've got costume codes. I'll just tweet them. Just follow me at Dyad Game, or
You've got Lollipop Chainsaw costume codes?
Yes, I bought the game like an asshole, and it sucked. So I have like costume codes that I'll never use. So I'm just going to tweet them. I was like searching. I'm sorry. I was searching my office for codes to give away, and this is all I had, unfortunately.
That's nice of you. So to follow you is at Dyad, D-Y-A-D, game. Dyad game, like one word, on Twitter. That's a good thing to do. I actually liked Lollipop Chainsaw, but I can see why you wouldn't like it, because here's my guess as to why you didn't like it. The fighting engine and the moment-to-moment decisions aren't all that interesting after a certain point. I thought they built up to a point where they were getting more and more interesting, and then probably by level 4, it's just more or less the same thing. And then
it was really hard for me to even get to the point where I had my boyfriend's head sitting on my waist. I appreciate his style, 51 style. I really... I mean, it's over-the-top sexualization and perhaps female objectification, which I'm not a fan of. But I am a fan of sort of exploitation films of the 70s era, and because they sort of do it in an over-the-top ironic way, and I think that they aren't misogynistic pieces of shit. So I do have respect for that. I have a lot of respect for how he did that, and I think it's quite good.
Mm-hmm.
But the actual game itself, I mean, the load times are hideously long.
That's true.
Dyad had, by the way, plug, Dyad has no load times, and I spent a lot of effort making sure it had no load times. It loads more data than a AAA game, and has no load times, because I don't like load times. So I thought the load times are hideous. I thought the overall gameplay was more or less button matching, and I mean, death had no consequence other than, you have to restart, and that's just something that bothers me. It's like, you died, restart. It's just like, fuck it, just let me continue, right? It's if there's nothing for me to learn other than the most mundane, uninteresting things that have been explored in every other game ever, why would I care about having to restart? So there was a lot of things about it that it was just like, it's just like a whole bunch of other. I mean, I thought Bayonetta was a much better game.
Oh, interesting. I couldn't get into Bayonetta because I didn't feel like I was encouraged to learn the specific mechanics. There was the whole witch time thing. I just didn't use witch time and got through the game fine. So without being led to learn what they thought would be interesting to find out, I was kind of stuck. Whereas Lollipop Chainsaw was the opposite for me. That game, the gameplay for me is very much about crowd control, arranging the zombies where you want to with the cheerleading moves, and then somehow killing them all at the same time, and that nets you all this extra money so you can buy CDs and stuff like that. So that was the game for me. And I enjoyed that part of the gameplay, but it sounds
like you liked it. I wish I liked it. I speak cynically about games a lot, and a lot of my friends are like, you have good points or whatever, but straight up, I fucking really wish I liked it. How much better would my life be if I fucking loved every game I played? It would be amazing.
I say that all the time. I didn't enjoy Skyrim very much. I never really got into the Grand Theft Auto series. I like Call of Duty for like 2 hours usually, and then I'm like, I'm done. So I'm in a sad world of not liking what everyone likes
Do you
too.
play Far Cry 2?
A little bit. I should get more into it. Oh, we have to wrap up the show. My engineer is saying, so thank you all for watching the show. Follow me at tronnots.com on Twitter if you want. And follow Shawn McGrath, the lovely Shawn McGrath. Thank you so much for being on the show at Dyad.
Thanks, it was fun.
Yeah, yeah.
I enjoy getting to answer questions, honestly.
And I enjoyed listening to them very much, so thank you.
Thanks.
It's legit.
Well, first Holmes was born, then he got fat, bald, and tired. Stop, Holmes.
My father's holding a banquet for the Gerudo leaders. They've come from the desert to make a treaty of peace, although I have terrible doubts about the leader's motives. He's a sorcerer. Who knows what sort of spell he'll put us under.
Our plans have been executed perfectly, my lord.